So your actual full name is Jonas Sunshine?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool, man. Cool. All right.
Yeah. My mom came up with that because she was like the Hippocrates Health Institute.
Yeah, yeah.
She met Ann Wigmore in 1970 something, and she ran an all-you-can-eat fruit buffet for them. And Doug Graham, I saw him at New Year's 2012, and he said, "Yeah, I went there in 1978." And I was like, "Really? That's cool." But then Grant Campbell said, "Doug never said he said that." So like, I don't know. Doug's in a little bit of trouble right now for like that fasting death and not, if I say the way to fix that, just get a water cleaning machine and do proper medical, supervision, like Lauren or True North might do.
I don't know the circumstances of this one. I really get frustrated when people cite like one death at a fasting institute and then they chuck the whole therapeutic fasting into the toilet.
Oh yeah. I mean, have you seen my Scribd? I've got like 12 supporting documents with all the scientific basis and all the stuff on fasting. And Pythagoras has been doing it. The Essenes have been doing it. So like, it was an Essene temple that I was raised in. So I knew people who did breatharian and died too. So it's like, I feel like a little skeptical on that, because I know that the body needs its fuel to build its energy, and you're not getting it all from air and water. But yeah.
Dude, we're going to totally go into that. So let me start it here. Let me start here. So,
cool.
Welcome, Jonas Sunshine, to Raw and Cooked Vegan.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Man, real pleasure. So, there's so many things. The first thing let's start with is just when you were growing up, were your parents, how were they oriented towards diet and fitness and
well, that's an interesting story, yeah, because say my mom was dealing with, she's the standard Belgian diet, because she was born in the Congo and raised in the Congo. You can imagine the tropical fruits and the amazing, but she was more raised by the help because her parents were more hands-off. People who went to the Belgian Congo were people who left after World War II because, the despair and the destruction of the bombing of the country and stuff.
Yeah.
Because her great-grandfather was an anti-fascist resistance fighter, organized a militia, was taken prisoner, fought the Blitzkrieg, didn't win, of course, got put in the Wolfenbüttel concentration camp for 36 through 44, and his head beheaded, right? So my grandfather was quite, I want to just leave.
Damn.
Africa, and he's in the Who's Who book for curing something. But then my mom, when Belgium Congo was over, they had to leave, right, because they gave the independence. She went back to Belgium, was put in boarding school, and she just wanted out of there. She in Belgium, when I go to Belgium, my family's all in Belgium, half of them at least, and they eat butter, bread, pannenkoek, which is these thin little crepes, right? Not really waffles, but they do have these dry waffles just coated in sugar. But then they're all about the big lunch. They call it dinner, the middle of the day, dinner, lunch. Everybody takes off school, work, whatever, goes home, eats dinner, and then goes back to, probably half asleep, probably. But then, but all these bread and jelly on that's what everybody was eating, jelly, bread, and cheese. And I'm like, really, that's a weird combination. If you look at the food combination chart, that doesn't even work. I have all these food combination charts, and you don't mix those three. Those are separate categories.
Definitely.
But so she wanted out of there. My dad was in the Navy in Cyprus as an Arabic translator who was supposed to go to Vietnam. Those people, they go, I was going to get drafted anyways, so I just went to Vietnam. But after he got out of Cyprus, he just wanted out of there. What they do in Cyprus is they spy on Lebanon and Syria to give the information to Israel, right, or whatever. So he just, I don't want a part of this anymore. So he moved on out of there, went to Turkey and Iraq and Iran, and he just been through all these areas traveling. He met Viktor Sklovinskis and Ann Wigmore in Turkey, and he had dysentery, and he met them, and they helped him with watermelon rind juice. And
that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. So how many languages did he speak?
He's good at 7. He knows Hungarian, I think. He knows Arabic. He's a really good language at French.
Amazing. Amazing.
My grandfathers knew more than he did, though. So they were big language people. But
wow.
But that's, a lot to fit in your head, right? So I like the idea of language and Chinese and Russian not having the verb to be, and a lot of Malaysian or Iroquois languages, because they can't say, oh, you're this or that. They can say, you did this, and I would like you to do differently because of, how I make my life more wonderful, or how Marsha Rosenberg would say. Because it's all about, we're trying to contribute and connect in life. That's the greatest reward in life, is connection and contribution to life. Why else does the child, it's called Memnoon energy. So why does the child feed the duck? Because it makes him feel good, and the duck loves it because it gets food. But yeah, back to the story. He was traveling through Turkey, and then he eventually got into Belgium, and my mom was in art school. She's like the black sheep. she's all spitting at the nuns she was telling me, just like not wanting to put up with this boarding school. But she's raised in the wild, by, people who are like doing dancing tradition. She's got her culture's traditional African culture. She wears the headdresses and the colorful dresses. And
that's cool, man. That's cool.
I was always embarrassed by my mom. She just act out and dance and just do whatever she wanted to do. And she never told me what to do. She let me do whatever I wanted to do. And sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, But then, so my dad was traveling through Belgium, and he met my mom when she was in art school, because all her brothers and sisters were all medical professions. Her dad's a surgeon, he's not alive now, because, the doctors have the highest incidence of disease, just like their patients, because they're doing the same things, access to the drugs, and all they do is cut, burn, and, whatever they, I've read so much natural hygiene here, so yeah.
So, did you have brothers and sisters?
I do have a younger brother. I was an only kid for a long time. I have a younger brother who literally looked up to me. He was 15 and he died in a motorcycle accident. So
oh, dude, I'm sorry.
I broke both my legs. I broke my arm in half. I fractured my temple. I broke my nose. It was bad news. That was 2005, I think, July 3rd.
So wait a minute, Jonas, you guys were together when the accident happened?
He was just visiting me for a week from New Mexico, because I was raised mostly in New Mexico, off the grid. We got solar panels, we got well,
Dude, I lived up in Taos for like 3 years.
So you know where Cerrillos is in Madrid, yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
That's where I'm from, so yeah.
Okay.
So it's a nice area, I love New Mexico, but it's ruleless. You do what you want to do, you're off the grid, you're out there, it's in nature. Maybe there's a lot of prickly pear, like I just been pricking, the prickly pear down here is a lot bigger than the prickly pear up there, but the prickly pear up there is a lot sweeter, so, but
yeah.
Prickly pear is the most abundant fruit in this whole southwest area.
So you're in what part of Arizona now?
I'm in Phoenix.
Phoenix, okay.
Right downtown Phoenix. I just love the culture here because there's this great art culture. But okay, so my dad's going through Belgium and he's cleaning a Persian rug, and my mom's with her girlfriend's on a little broomer, like a scooter, and they meet that way. And my mom's like, "This is my out. I'm out of here." I travel around Europe together. She went back to Philadelphia, where he's from, because his family is like Huguenots. They fought the British, and it's a long story with the Huguenots. They had to escape Swiss persecution because in France, at one point, they would kill you if you're not Catholic. If you didn't do the Bible in Latin, you're done,
Yep.
They had to flee to England, and they worked for King James and wrote a bunch of books called The History of England about the fall of Julius Caesar to the revolution in France, all the family of the British crown, And then they were mercenaries, so they fought and took North Ireland. But then at one point, they're like, "We don't want you guys here. You're way too skilled and stuff. Go to the New World, or America." They sent them to Virginia, and my great-great-great-grandfather, Daniel Rapine, he became the second mayor of Washington, D.C.
Huh,
interesting. He was Justice of the Peace by Madison. So there's all this connection to so I'm really big into the liberty movement, even though I was kind of before more in anarchist leanings. But I realized the anarchists really came from the liberty movement, and it's like Rothbard and Mises and Hayek. I've been reading all these people's books, and I'm like, oh, this is simple. And it matches with hygiene really well, and it meshes with nonviolent communication really well because it's non-aggression. It's so simple,
It's really interesting that you say that, because I feel today that there are some political groups who suggest that they represent this initial founding father dynamic, and I really don't think they do.
Not at all. Yeah, you're from New Mexico, so you know Gary Johnson. He stopped the raids in the family. He solved the budget, keeping a surplus, and there was no more unemployment because they just unregulated the corporate people to do what they wanted to do business-wise. And that was an interesting time in New Mexico. I didn't really realize it, but then in retrospect, I realized, well, Gary Johnson's one who caused really all that change when he got elected.
I'll have to look into that. I'm not too familiar with that. So,
I was excited. I was convinced Gary Johnson was going to win. I was like, everybody knows that Romney and Obama are both funded by Goldman Sachs. They bailed out the banks. That wasn't fair. Let the banks fail, restructure. We'd have a better world now. But now we're in this big fight with China and Russia to the reserve currency of the world or whatever, who's got the resources, and then they make a big deal out of Ukraine and Syria, and I'm like, that's a mess. I just want to see peace, and I think it's really simple to get peace. You've got to acknowledge people's needs. I'd like to see Durian writer Doug Graham and these guys sit down together, not just throw each other back and forth or ignore each other, or Christina too, because I'm in the middle of this. Really, and Christina Bukarama are both messaging me because everybody wants to be friends, right? People want to stay friends. People like influence, and they're both talking to me, and I'm trying to talk to both of them. I can't mediate between them without them being together. You know what I mean? It's like.
Dude, I hear you. You just want to, I want to bridge the gaps too.
Victoria Arnstein was very upset with me because I just asked her to throw us that's just support, because I have a lot of Jewish friends who are against, what's happening in Israel, and they'd like to see change, but she's on the other side of that fence, and I didn't realize that. I tried to make an outward reach, and I said, hey, but she says consider people before animals, and that was her justification to keep Dan in the pioneers, you know. And Dan says straight up, I will never be a compassionate vegan. I sell honey, you know. I have a multi-level marketing program where they sell whatever products they sell, and I make the money off that. So it's, you know, I need to pay my child support. I need to pay my mansion bill, you know, for Sedona. I need to pay my truck bill. So he's got obligations, he's got duties there, but, you know, at the same time, other methods.
Yeah, it's complicated, man. It's complicated. But I hear you. I hear you on the building bridges and trying to make peaceful connections. It's like a tricky tightrope of expressing yourself honestly and not offending people. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, let me get back to your story, man. I want to hear your story. So, what's that?
Yeah, great. Because I was going to say that the opposite of offense and defensiveness is openness and vulnerability. When you keep that space, and not everybody can do that, and you have to be able to self-reflect and give yourself empathy before you can even give it to anybody else. A lot of times I'm hearing people's judgment. I'm like, well, can you tell me how you're feeling right now and what the need is behind that, and maybe ask me a question in a doable way, open to the no, that I can respond to, and we can work. You can hear the yes behind my no, and we can find an answer, you know. And there's always a win-win resolution, but it takes both people willing and participating to do that.
You know, Jonas, I love what you're saying, and I fell prey to this myself. When I was early on the computer, I was kind of feeding into that kind of making rapid negative comments, you know, and I've totally shifted away from that, and it's like, you don't have to.
There's no right and wrong thinking. Like, you don't need right and wrong thinking. All you gotta do is worry about what your needs are, and you understand that other people share those needs. And if there's negative feelings, because the needs are unmet, it's that simple. I think I have this little. I carried in my pocket. Where is that thing somewhere? It's a little card with all like a list of feelings and a list of needs, so I can break it out and be like, I'm feeling maybe this way, and I'm needing maybe this. You know, it's just really interesting. It's good to have, you know. But
that's cool. That's cool. Okay.
So back to my story. Yeah, my mom was in Philly, and she was just like, he wants me to have 11 kids, and this city's dirty. And he told her a story about Ann and Victor's helping him, right? So she went over and found them in Boston.
Okay, wait. Let me ask you, Jonas. So your dad wanted to have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And your mom, and so now they're married.
Yeah.
And she's not like, did she want to have 11 kids or no?
Oh no, she said that to me. You know, it's such you get a different story from your mom and your dad all the time, right? Like my dad says she just left, and my dad didn't take part and didn't take response, didn't really try to come after me, but she also took me away. So it's like I never got to really meet my dad until I was later in life, in my junior high years. And I feel there's a benefit to that because I got to have this pure living that my mom chose, which was, you know, very strict but at the same time very freeing. You know, it's like she had a specific way, and she's hard-headed. She wants things her way, you know, which is health the way, you know, because she understands she has her problem, IBS, from eating crappy Belgian food, and that's painful, you know, to have irritable bowel syndrome, I'm sure, you know, and she had just gone on a fast with Lauren Lockman for like so many days down there, did the long fast. And
did she? All right.
It's got a funny story. If you listen to my YouTube channel, she's talking some schmack on the YouTube about, he wanted to do this and talk to these girls and doing this, and this girl told me this and this and that, and we're trying to get out there in a taxi. It's a dramatic story, but it's funny, you know, it's funny. And I think both of them can learn from it if they watch it. You know, I don't think they have, but.
All right, so it sounds like your mom was really open-minded. Did she raise you vegan, or did she raise you vegetarian, or?
Well, the thing is like they were vegan at the Hippocrates. It was called the Hippocrates Health Institute, right? Ann Wigmore set it up, but she died in a house fire, right? And I feel like there's a lot of suspicion to that. I don't know. I have my suspicions, but also what happened is she went to Boston, learned from them, worked in 1974 for an all-you-can-eat fruit buffet. So Hippocrates does not do fruit now, as you know, maybe. You know, they're not pro-fruit. You watch John Kohler's video or Paul Neeson's video where they go visit this place, and it's like a big bowl of steamed grains or something, and oils and ferments and sprouts, right?
Right.
And tons of supplements for sale. And a lot of people come out of there and they have to find help somewhere else after they paid a lot of money. So what happens is Ann Wigmore is no longer in control of that, but like she moved over to this place called Temple Beautiful in West Philly, and this guy named Stephen Hawes. So it was a sister branch of the Hippocrates Health Institute in Philadelphia, and it's a raw vegan cafe, and it's in yoga magazines, but it was very controversial too because it's an Essene temple, right? And the Essenes feel like everybody's reborn again, you know, there's, you know, it's not, we're all special, and, you know, with the Gnostic Gospels, and, you know, there's the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's interesting stuff. I really like to take an historical context of it. But, you know, with the guy Stephen Hawes was running it, and he would take women into it, and I guess they'd have some sexual relations, and he was, wasn't very respectful with women, or maybe he was trying to be over respectful, you know, whatever. I don't remember as a kid very much.
Dude, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Like, everybody's got hormones, so, I'm not going to blame anyone for, like, looking to, like, breed, and that's every cell in your body is copy, copy, copy. That's an internal message that surely combines together to make an external, intrinsic of a, organismic message. So what happens is, she went over there to do that, and then eventually she left with a girlfriend over to New Mexico to plant trees, in the reef, build the gold mine up in Gold Mine Hills, where the Ortiz Mountains are, where the cities of gold.
Okay,
So I really feel, inspired to have been grown up in the old, like, the original Santa Fe, where, like, the first house and the first, church and all the stuff, there's so much history there.
Yeah.
But there's anger there, because I was in Philadelphia and I'm in an all-black neighborhood. My dad's married to a black woman, and I have a sister from there, And, so it was interesting. I liked that dynamic, because I'm out of my element. I'm very unique, and everybody was respectful towards me. But in New Mexico, people are highly angry about their culture being destroyed and raped and pillaged. And they all say, I'm not even Indian. They're so angry, they'll say, I'm not Native American. I'm Spanish or I'm Italian. And that's not true. Everybody's a mix of Native American that got,
Jonas, it's good to hear you say this, because that was one of the things I found in Taos. I mean, I love Taos. It's beautiful. But there are these kind of unresolved social dynamics that are pretty heavy duty there, man.
And it resolves to New Mexico and here in Arizona too, because we got this governor and the Attorney General, Tom Horn, who ended that Mexican Americans. A lot of kids were inspired by this program where they learn about their Indian roots and empower them, but also make them very angry. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he ended that program because he felt like it was a threat to America, even. But he's stood up for different things, and I've seen him speak the other day, But in New Mexico, I got jumped by West Side. They'd be chasing me down because I'm a skateboarder. I'm always like, I'm not the preps. I'm not the jocks. I'm on my element. I went to a lot more schooling in Philadelphia, so I had all these credits under my belt. I had done genetically modified engineering, and I didn't realize the ethics of it in ninth grade until I did. And then I went to New Mexico, and I did the Human Genome Project with Los Alamos in collaboration in my AP physics class. So my last year of high school, I had like 1 or 2 classes. They forced me into government economics to tell me about the Federal Reserve. They don't tell you everything about it. They just like, this is helping us, or it's whatever. And I'm like, oh, now I know more. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, I like Bitcoin. I like the fact that we can make Austrian economics. And I'm the peer generation. We had Napster when I was just in college, So I moved to Phoenix to go to University of Advancing Technology, which is all about computers. I was always following the computers. I had 3 classes at the Santa Fe Community College to work on computers, like CAD and animation and video editing. And I just wanted to follow the technology because my dad was an engineer for Johnson & Johnson. He made the LASIK eye surgery device. And
wow.
So like the scanners for registers and measuring devices. And now he works for Honeywell. So he's on his own level. He's not a very good communicator. We never had a good bond because we never had a bond, right? So I went live with him for 3 years. But he's a cool guy, and my mom helped him a lot, but she ditched him, So it's like, so he's hurt, internally, he's a Navy intelligence. And so, he's got to keep quiet. He's got to be very secretive. So that's just his persona,
All right, but tell me, Jonas, as far as your mom, how she raised you with diet. So she was influenced by Hippocrates, which was, I think they were vegetarian at least, and they were big into wheat.
Phase, like my mom was cutting papaya, cutting all these things, a lot of fermented nut cheese sauces. My mom said I grew up on like cashew sauce, like that's just blend cashews, put it in the fridge, and it just ferments and it becomes like a really tangy cheese. Like now I don't do fermentation, so I kind of helped her grow a little bit more because she's on this level, I feel like, where she's like, I wasn't doing as what she's doing. She's doing all these raw food creations that are very immaculate, like, buying cacao powders and expensive things and dehydrating sheets of chilies and all kinds of things. She'd process it up and roll it, and because she lost her teeth, have been really damaged from that bad diet as a child. So she's had a lot of what are those fake teeth things, and they fall out or whatever.
Dentures,
dentures now. So she's gonna get a larger solution. She has to pull teeth out that are good just because you have to get a bigger set. So I'm like, wow. I've lost 1 tooth here because of a skateboard accident. I had hit my jaw on a skateboard, and I don't know.
Oh, dude. But tell me, so have you been vegetarian or vegan your whole life?
So I've been vegetarian my whole life because of that. And I started to say maybe my mom tried to give me goat cheese after she left Hippocrates to go help an ex-nun and an ex-priest in New Jersey when I was about 6 or 7,
Wow.
I were there, and I remember that. We had goats and stuff, and she'd milk goats. She became like a goat milking person. They weren't doing goat's milk over at Hippocrates. They were doing fermented nut cheese and fermented stuff, a lot of fruit.
Yep.
And the majority of the diet was fruit. And that's I think that's where Doug Graham might have learned. If he said he came in 78, and saw what we were doing. But natural hygiene, I've been researching all the way back to Isaac Jennings, and I said I've gone back to Aryans in Egypt and Pythagoreans and Essenes. So put a lot of history of vegetarianism videos together, which are really neat.
This is totally cool, and I want to totally break that down with you.
Topic, yeah. I need to get back to the topic you're talking about.
Well, no, it's cool, man. It's cool that you just got so much information. It's like overflowing. But
sit in a very small amount. But
no, it's cool. It's totally cool. But so your mom did a heavily fruit thing for a while. It sounds like she experimented with different things. And it's interesting that you mentioned the goat milk, because sometimes I think I heard of this dude in Hawaii who had been like vegan for many, many years, and then he started raising goats. And I think he does it like really ethically. I would not drink goat's milk, but
I was upset by it. I was 15, right? And like, say, for in the future, I had to go back and forth. My mom left me with this nun in New Jersey, right? Ex-nun. She became macrobiotic. I got cavities because of all the acidic food. I remember plum sauce, nori balls, and like rice. That was like a big staple after I got off the raw food, right?
Wow.
And my mom was doing that experimental raw food stuff and tried to get under the goat cheese. And I never liked the taste of goat milk. I was like, ew, disgusting. You know, it's not for me. So she had me peeling almonds. I had to soak and peel because the tannic acid in the almond skins. So my job was to soak almonds and peel almonds every day and blend them with figs. That's figs and almond juice. So that was my food, most of my food, right? So I was eating that. I remember we had buckets of dates, buckets of figs, you know, because we ended up living in New Mexico off the grid in the Eagle's Nest. It's behind Madrid, and it's like
I know Eagle's Nest. Yeah,
Eagle's Nest is a little rock house in a hill, you know. It's, this is the town too, but yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So okay, so after these, now what age were you when you were doing the figs and almonds and
I was in New Mexico when I was like 7, 8, 9, 10. I went back to New Jersey say I was there for like Montessori school for a year. I went to Montessori school with the ex-nun, and then that was my first year. I was very foundational. Montessori is very important to me because they let you do what you want to do. They let you solve your own problems. Say like I stole something from another kid, they're not going to punish me for it. They're going to say, no, you and the other kid, you guys work it out. You know, I mean, between you two.
Montessori is really cool. I like Montessori.
It's very important to my starting in that, you know. Yeah. And then in third grade, I went back to New Mexico. So my mom had been more vegetarian, and she had some boyfriend, and she's helping some Native American kids whose mother abandoned them because they weren't full Native American. She just blazed. She had one kid that was full Native, like Winnebago, and she just took off. Ezra and Hagar are their names, and they're my stepbrothers. And I have a younger brother. Triffy was my brother's name, my younger brother. And so she was helping them. So it was a lot more of the raw tofu kind of method, you know, a lot of like beans and rice and squash and corn and you know, and she'd help these guys, these boyfriends she had, G.I. Joe and Jack were their names, Jack Piper. And so she'd help them become more vegetarian and be healthy, you know, so they, you know, were healthy in their diet and, you know, fit, and they were construction type people and, you know, kind of off-grid. New Mexico's off-grid living. People are living on the edge of society and doing whatever they can to make money, right? So they're growing plants and whatever's on, you know, so. It's
pretty cool. It has that kind of vibe and
people are paranoid too because the federal government will come in there and mess with people, right? So they're like, hey, we're trying to avoid that, you know, so it forms their little tight networks, and it's kind of like an ex-hippie kind of gay community is what it is, right? It's like it's like a lesbian community that bought up an old hippie community that from the coal mine community who ran away, you know? It's all ghost town. So,
dude, and it's incredibly beautiful. I mean, the sky out there,
sunsets, you name it. So, but my mom had goats all this time, right? And I never liked the goat stuff. But then she's got these goats, and I understood the goats didn't want to be forced pregnant. They didn't want all the males killed. You know, they didn't want their babies stolen and made malnourished, and it wasn't very fair to always force the goat. The goat's in pain. That's why it's bleeding because it wants to be milked, because it's painful to be full of milk for years, you know?
Okay.
So I was like, people, Ricky and Susan were their name, and they came from Providence, Rhode Island, and they were like white Jewish Rastas. I don't know how that works, but they're like from Providence. So they have Jewish, so it's like, okay. Like heritage-wise, you know, but not like they're practicing Rastafarianism, right?
You know what's funny about that? It's like, you know, what's the town in New Mexico? It's between Santa Fe and Taos, and there's the Sikh community there.
Pasuke.
Pasuke. It's near Pasuke. It's what's the name?
San Carlos, Santa Cruz, or no?
Española.
Yeah, Española. Yeah, that's a lowrider town. Yeah.
Yeah, Española, and near Española, there's that big Sikh community.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of Jews that have kind of become Sikhs there. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of Sikhs. Remember growing up, there's a lot of people wearing the turbans and, you know, going to Whole Foods and the co-op. La Montanita is the co-op name there, right? The co-op. So what happened was, I got a story. I can tell a whole story about La Montanita, how the board director came out. I was a board director at the General Strength Co-op down here in Tempe, and it was infighting and tumultuous trouble, right? But so what happened was, Yeah, like these people, Ricky and Susan, came around and they were making vegan food, these big bakes and pans and putting it in the ovens. And I was like, wow, this is delicious, like eggplants and all this stuff that's just delicious. And I was like, wow. And they showed me a movie called Blood of the Beast, 1949, The Slaughterhouses of France. And that was a shocking movie. You know, the cows' faces, they have the skin and the muscles move for hours and like, you know, what they just show everything. It's just a movie about what they do at slaughterhouses, right? And then they show me this other movie, which is a porno called The Story of O. I've never heard of The Story of O, but it's a book written by this lady named Pauline. It's the first porno book ever written by a woman, and it's by a woman. Not written by a woman, it's first ever written, and it's by a woman. And so they show me a combination of these two, and they told me domestication is phallic. So why do humans' business have any business controlling the sexing of animals? That's their business. Why are we controlling their breeding? And if you look at that like movie Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, they talks about 10,000 years ago we started controlling bird food, like grains, and picking them out, bigger seeds.
You know, Jonas, this is very interesting what you're saying because I did a brief little thing. I don't know if you saw it. There's an excellent book. It's called Goddesses, and it's Joseph Campbell and goddesses and mythology associated with goddesses. And a big point he makes in there is that you had these agrarian societies and cultures that had feminine deities that were the primary influence. And then you have these nomadic patriarchal cultures that come in and take over the agrarian society, and they impose this masculine deity on top of
the powers that be by Walter Wink. He talks all about the feminine gods in here and how they were overthrown by Tiamat was overthrown by Marduk, and we lost it. Ever since then, might has meant right, war has meant peace, the patriarchy over matriarchy, you know. And if you look at the bonobos, they're still living with that matriarchal culture that we used to have, you know. But
very interesting, Jonas. Very interesting.
So it's really interesting stuff. And they told me, you know, go vegan when you're 20. It's phallic to control animals. And I didn't like, why are we captivating these goats in the yard and they all stink? And my job is to clean the goat shit, you know. And I earned a motorcycle doing it. But
Dude, I don't blame you for not wanting to be around the goat shit.
Yeah, and I built my own house in the backyard when I was 16. I just kind of ran away into my backyard, built my own house under the ground, on top of the ground, whatever. And then I got a girlfriend in high school, like in junior high, and I moved over to her house, and it was down the road by Galisteo Turnoff, and she was like...
Yeah, Galisteo, yeah.
And she was 6 feet tall, and she had went to St. John's. So she was big into, like... She was kind of the person who was kind of into, what's that guy's name?
Philosophy?
Kafka or something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know? So she had her own opinions like that. I was a little different. I was more existential in my views always. I always liked Nietzsche. Then I learned Nietzsche came from Stirner and plagiarized that. And I'm like, I've been blown away by Stirner. And then I learned he learned from Diogenes of Sinope. And I'm like, Diogenes of Sinope is so badass because he's like simple as virtue. And then he learned from Antisthenes, and they were both students of Socrates. And they had this culture wars in Greece against Plato and Aristotle. And the guy, that's why I named my channel Lycophron, because Lycophron was a guy who's given the Alexandria Library. He was organizing the comedy. He made the something on comedy, you know, he's organized all the humor and comedy in an Alexandrian library, and he was given that role by this.
You still there? I lost you.
Huh.
There we go.
There we go, yeah. So he was in a culture... Oops. Put the camera back on. So he was in a culture war versus Aristotle and Plato, this Lycophron guy, and he made this thing called G prime. It was just like Korzybski's E prime, which is taking to be out of language to make it more mathematical, to be like, use real verbs. Instead of saying, I am white, oh, I appear white. You know, use your senses and connect them to the realities of...
Okay, wait a minute, Jonas. I want you to break that. That's a huge concept. I want you to break that down. Break that down a little for us. So you've mentioned this previously, and I think that you're hitting on something huge. So the verb to be, it's a prominent verb in Western civilization, right? In most Western languages.
Yeah.
And you're making a huge thing here. So slow it down and break it down for us. Why is it significant that the verb to be is not in some of these other languages?
Let me jump up and get this book right here. Let's see, I got these anthologies. Early on, I got these anthologies, right? To be or not to be.
Yeah.
It's hard to read right there. There it is. To be or not to be. E prime anthology. And then I end up getting volume 2 and 3, which are even bigger. But it talks about how when we use real verbs in language, they help us get more clarity and understanding so we can avoid conflict. So if people are going around, like I said, like when Marshall Rosenberg went to the Semai tribe in Malaysia, and he was trying to help them communicate with the people who were doing development. They were just tearing down their forests, and they had no way to communicate. It wasn't really a language barrier. It was a fundamental structure of language barrier. So they couldn't say, you guys are awful, you guys are assholes, you're tearing down our forest, and we don't want this. You know, they couldn't say that. They can say, so Marshall Rosenberg found out they don't have that in their language. They're a very peaceful language. They have this word abud. It means when a child says abud, it means no, and nobody violates a child's sovereignty. They have total autonomy. So that way they develop this deep respect and understanding for people's self-determination. And they are very peaceful. They don't have violence in their culture because they're not able to call names, and they're very honorable of other people's choices. And so he said, well, look at these people in the Holocaust. How could they survive the Holocaust and still come out a compassionate people with their emotions intact? Because you realize even if someone's controlling your behaviors, you still have things you can do to make yourself feel good. No matter what situation you're put under, you have choice.
You know, Jonas, I love what you're saying, and it kind of speaks to my position, which is that humans are intrinsically good. You know, humans are deep down, they're good. And it's only these kind of artificial societal structures that have kind of corrupted our behavior.
Yeah, well, I worry about that. I think, like, I can see what you're saying is, like, we inherently seek positivity, maybe, by meeting our needs, and our resulting feelings will be positive, so we're always positivity seekers. We're, like, always seeking to have a satisfaction. We're like, every cell doesn't want to die, right? Just like the body in natural hygiene is always striving towards health. Disease is the body curing itself. That if you don't have a symptom, every symptom is a sign of self-healing. So if I get garlic and I get mucusy, well, that's a sign of, maybe that's a problem. Maybe I don't want garlic because the garlic is causing a protective layer to form around it to not hurt my organs as it goes through it. Right. That's really important learning. I always thought garlic was my medicine. I'm like, oh, if I ever have a problem, I'm putting garlic in me. But now that I've gotten rid of that, I have never had a problem yet. And I'm like, wow, that actually was the problem. Like people with allergy medicines, the allergy medicine is inhibiting from the cure to the allergy. And it's like, that's really simple. It's a really powerful statement, you know? Okay,
so you're opening up a huge topic here. Before we go into that, let me just...
I want to finish off one more it's called the formulation is called the non-identity formulation. It's about Korzybski came up with this in the 1800s, and he said...
And Korzybski is from what country?
He's from Poland.
Okay.
He's the guy who came up with it. He's Esperanto, too, so to make a universal language.
Yeah, cool.
So he's really important in history, and he's a really important guy, and he came up with 15 formulations, and I love them, like time binding, to say when things happened, or to use etc., to make it, like, expanded. It's not just limited to what we said, and non-absolutism. Like, I love editing words and changing it to, like, take out the alls, take out the every, take out the none, and say some, you know, or, you know, sometimes I play with each, you know, I feel like each is my word. Okay, each is a word that kind of has some gray area, and, like, sometimes, like, seems. It gives gray area to say, instead of, that is this way, it seems that way, then I'm giving perspective to myself. Like in scientists and objective journalists, they write me prime because it's important that they do that to give scientific validity to what they're saying, because that's applying math to language to make it more accurate.
I love this. And all of that leads to identifying the ego with an assertion, identifying the small ego, my limited self, to a particular seemingly permanent concept, which is not permanent and not infinitely verifiable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about individual. I used to call it individual relative perspectives. We each have an individual relative perspective to ourselves. And what happens is we each see from our own point of view. Maybe we can relate to each other. That's how we form the definition of words, by consensus process. Well, you agree, I agree, until we all get to agreement. And that's beautiful. So, you know, it's like so important, like what you said, like I like this book called Max Stirner, The Ego in Its Own, because there's different words. You look up egotism and then you look up egoism. They're quite the opposite in definition. Like, I want to be self-full. I want to be a self-full individual. I want to encourage others to be self-full. I don't want them to be selfless and like give up themselves, because you don't want to do something that'll hurt yourself. You don't want to do something that'll compromise one need for another need. I want to be safe, and I want to be, you know, get my well-being met by eating food, you know, so it's a balance act. Everything's a balance act, you know. I kind of have this Libra symbol, you know. I don't read much into it. Like, I like Carl Sagan a lot, so he's like, astronomy's so much bigger, and I'm like, yeah, it's so much bigger. You know, we know more now, you know. Like, that was their superstition, and that works great for them, and it worked. But at the same time, it's a lot of power leads to abuse. That's what I like that saying. Like, every behavioral study ever done shows that a parent, a boss, a teacher, a guard will take advantage of their situation, and that's why that's why conspiracy has been really good, because people didn't trust people in power for a rightful reason, because they were taking advantage of their power for their own self-interest, like Dawkins' Selfish Gene book. And then he has this movie called The Good Guy Always Wins. So when people realize when they work together, they mutual benefit, and we're a cooperative species. So when we cooperate, we get way more ahead. But now we know the technology leads to our destruction in some level, right? Like you're saying, the technology gets to us.
Well, and this too, there's a huge point you're on here. I like your reference to self-full, and yet there's this principle which seems to correlate with self-full, which is that we are social beings, and being self-full means also being positive for the community. So it's like it's the thing I was thinking about the other day. If you eat a vegan lifestyle, there are so many positive ramifications through so many different levels. It's almost like you could say there's a hierarchy, and the more wholesomely good something is, the more positive ramifications there are. And so, like this self-full reference you're making, it's like it's tied in with full harmonious, healthful expression, which is related to the fullest harmonious experience for the whole system, not just one individual.
Yeah, everything works together. Like a mushroom is there to break down and ferment things. The algae is there to clean the sea. Everything has its role and its function in a symbiotic system, right? Harmony, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really important, that we start recognizing that symbiosis and that harmony. And if we didn't undermine and arrest Herbert Shelton and suppress I.J. Jennings and Antoine Béchamp, I learned so much from his book. It's called Blood, the Third Element, right? Here it is. I got this book in the mail. And Louis Pasteur plagiarized this guy, right? And it's really important. Like, the learnings of this book have never been implemented, right? Like, you hear all this stuff about vaccines and the Ebola virus. It's all like hoax, right? All these, I have this video from T.C. Fry on my YouTube channel called Contagion is a Myth. And he talks about how AIDS virus is a combination of symptoms from a breakdown. In Martin Luther King High School in Philadelphia that I went to for, in junior high, I'd go there for, from junior high to go over there to high school. They want to get you, it's all about indoctrination. Get you used to having a locker. Get you used to being transported. Get you used to being quiet and sitting still, whatever. And so I'm going to high school, and everybody there is 50% of the people were HIV positive. And it wasn't from having sex, it was from their poor health, from the drugs they were being fed. I was an all-black community. They were being marginalized. Just like that study came out about CDC being busted for neglecting all the statistics in the communities. And they're in big trouble. Like, when are we going to end the CDC? When are we going to end the FDA?
Oh, Jonas, man.
Monsanto's taken over the world, and we're scared,
Huge topics here. There's some great videos for any that have not seen them on YouTube about AIDS, and Duesberg is one of my favorites. Very interesting guy. So it's what I think complicates it for me and perhaps the public is that you have many scientists branching off into these specialized directions and refining their knowledge in these specialized areas, and there's no broad picture. It's very strange that why is AIDS so prominent in Africa and not nearly as prominent in the United States? Thank you.
It's the money. It's the specialization. Like the bankers in 1914, they set up the system. They set up the master's programs. They set up the school system. They set up the banking system. They set up the medical system. They're called the Rockefeller brothers. There's a good book about them and how they did it. And they control this system, and they don't want to let go right now. That's why China and Russia are vying for, not dominance, because they don't have a language that allows them to dominate like that. They're looking for their self-determination at some level more, And what happened is people have always been suppressed. Like Rife has been suppressed. Reich has been suppressed, Tesla's been suppressed. Antoine Béchamp has been suppressed. Shelton's been suppressed. All these people in history have been suppressed with their knowledge because it challenges the structure. And that's why they want specialties. That's why they want, it's called entropy. They want to specialize you into one task where you only know one thing, and that you're never a generalist. You're never going to know a broad spectrum of knowledge, and therefore you'll never be a threat to the system. And that's why they've called me anti-authoritarian, and they've taken away my son and said, oh, you're not going to give him enough protein. They didn't take him from me. They took him from the mother, and the mother, it's the mother's mother who tells on her, and she had helped her. So it's a big conflict of interest. And I'm wrapped up in it for 5 years. Like, I've been wrapped in the CPS system for 5 years. I'm just a John Doe father who comes in. They see me as someone different. Oh, you talk fast. Oh, you're strong. Oh, you're healthy. You've got to be a problem. You're different. That different means problem. and they try to throw labels at you. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing identity. I'm not trying to be labeled. You know, I do things and I want to hear how you feel. They would never empathize. They would never give me empathy. They were all about their jobs. It's a jobs issue. They're being a paycheck. And I hope one day my son, like, I was so important to me because I didn't get to meet my father, and it was a big deal to me, you know? Yeah. And I didn't have the connection I want. So I wanted to really hard work for my son and build that connection. And they didn't let me. They worked as hard as they could to use me against me. Sent me to these psychiatrists and psychologists who would just make stuff up off a 30-minute visit, whatever they felt like, to undermine me as a person and not listen to me. I'm trying to be open with them. If I wasn't open, I would just sit there and said nothing and been no. I probably would have had a better chance. You know, talking to these people, you set yourself up for a big... One couple years that I was in Scientology, and they call these people the industry of death, you know? Scientology is just some made-up thing. L. Ron Hubbard, he's from here, and he even says it, just makes it up, just like all these make it up, like gold, like Joseph Smith. He was a gold-digging guy who told people I could see your gold in my glasses, and he got killed by them because they cheated them, you know? And it's like, hey, and they're going to start a whole thing off that, and they're around here, and they're really positive people, and I love talking to them, you know? They're on their bicycles, and they're all around, and I'm like, hey, let me talk to you guys. You're always picking on people of color because you think they're cursed by some Cain thing, but hey, let's talk. And they love talking, but then they love moving on too. So
I love the open-mindedness, Jonas. I love it.
I love open-mindedness too. It's so important, you know, to have an open mind, because then we can change based on new information. New information gives us, okay, let's compile it. I love amalgamization. You know, I include different things, I mix it together, and I come up with something that combines them, and it's new, and it's acceptable by everybody. I feel like if your life, you can understand that you have a natural worldview. You're in nature. You're not escaping nature. Nature's laws have a big precedent on you. And Isaac Jennings came up with these. Rousseau helped him, came up with these, because he saw Rousseau and he saw, wow, these 16 formulations, like the law of power, the law of dual effects. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction with a longer lasting consequence. And every new generation of hygienists that's come along has reworded them in a new way to understand for the new generation to better understand it. You know, T.C. Fry had his 22, Graham 32, you know, and it's all these things that are simple.
This is something I really wanted to hear your thoughts on, because I feel like these natural hygienists are kind of these unsung heroes, and they paved the way. I mean, Doug Graham exists because of natural hygiene, and you know, T.C. Fry, natural hygienist.
Yeah, there's Lawrence Gallant, David Klein, and Doug Graham were people who learned from T.C. Fry. Victoria Virginia Petrano is still alive. She's still doing her thing. Bidwell, I've talked to Bidwell on the phone. Bidwell's still up there doing her thing up in Oregon, you know, and she's got all this material. I got CDs and CDs. I've been reading. I have every single thing from John Henry Tilden. I love reading this John Henry Tilden stuff, you know. I've got books here from guys like this book right here, Unfired Food, like the food guide, you know, food health recipes. This would be a great book for Raw 4 because it's got so many hygienic cooked recipes in it, you know, and it's like, wow, you know, sure, there may be higher fat back then, and understand there's different things. Like, I have Unfired Food. It's a book about raw veganism from 1910, you know, and it's like, it's nothing new, you know, there's nothing new to this.
I know, it's like Arnold Ehret, mucusless diet, but okay, so Jonas, tell me if you can, was there a year where you conclusively shifted to veganism? And can you tell us now, what's your take on the raw cook thing? Does that matter? Is it relevant? What's?
Yeah, very relevant to me. Let's see. Say it like those Rastas, Ricky and Susan, they told me when I was 20, I started doing vegan when I was 15. You know, I started like, this speciesism is not correct. I don't agree with speciesism, you know. It's very understood to me, you know. I'm big into these, like, you know, authors. I'm even friends with Peter Singer and stuff. And, you know, I like, you know, like, you know, these guys like, Francois, and I do a lot of Direct Action Now. Direct Action Now is a really good, important network. You know, we're going into fast food establishments and throwing protests in their establishments, and we create a stink. It's all within our legal rights, and the special police, they come, they give us our 15 minutes to speak in there, and let us talk to people. The people who get the most angry are the people who convert. Because that's what, like Gandhi said, you know, I was born on the same day as Gandhi. Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they fight you, and then they accept what you said. So first everybody's ignoring us, trying to pretend we're not there. Then they're getting angry at us because we're disrupting their meal. And then they come out and they accept what we're saying. And they want to learn more. And like, oh, wow. So, you know, there it is. I'm sitting at lunch. I was an architect, you know. Because you're in Arizona, you're reciprocity. You're able, it's like grandfathered in. You can become something by working for someone who is something. So I went to school for computer animation and graphics and rendering. And I'm like, so they hired me to do all this visual graphics. And I was always doing CAD. I won VICA, you know, drafting architecture and mechanical. I was more a mechanical guy, but architecture was where the work's at. So I'm doing all this. I built so many things: courthouses, pharmacies, fast food. I can like only name all stuff, but here I am at this thing called Portisub with the architecture coworkers. And I remember what they said. It was my 20th birthday, and I remember what they said: "Go vegan when you're 20." And I'm like, "Oh, that's today," you know. And this is it. You know, I had a 4-cheese sandwich, and that was my last 4-cheese sandwich I'd ever had in my life. I was like, "That's it, American, Swiss, provolone, Munster." That's this. Because I was always eating cheese hoagies. Here in Philly, everybody got this cheese steak hoagie. So I'm like, I don't eat steak. So I'm eating a cheese hoagie. And I had this cheese hoagie, and I always thought, oh, the onions, I love the onions because they make me smell like onions. You know, I don't want the onions now. But but because I know about the antibiotic properties, and I want to promote life. I don't want to suppress life. And the more I promote life, the healthier my gut flora. Like Al Gore said, the microbiome is in your colon. I have a lot of videos from scientists talking about, we're just learning now the extent of the microbiome. It's 100 times more of us in us than us is this living structures. So it's a beautiful thing. So that day from that point on, I called, well, there's a lot of sequence of events happen. I met the secretary who came to work there, a few, secretaries or administrative assistants. They're, they come in, they go, they come in, they go. And one of them was very
this was at the facility where you were doing the CAD architecture.
Architects, yeah. And I was doing architects, so I got a break, to work at this firm. They're out of Henderson, but they have an office in Scottsdale. I always worked in Scottsdale, but lived in Phoenix. So, I'm working at this art. I worked at Scale Drawings before for some other guy I was a full-time school, full-time work. I pushed the limit. I didn't have a social life at that point. That's all I did was work in school. But, so it's like, here I am, like going to, this, loving, so I'd go to raw food meetup potlucks, I'd always like go to raw vegan restaurants and try them out. And it's kind of like, the secretary was celiac and she was so emaciated and so thin and always sick. And I put it together in my head. Anybody could be gluten insensitive. Everybody's gluten sensitive. When you become gluten intolerant, you're in trouble. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be painfully suffering. And there's gluten in all kinds of things. There's even proven there's gluten in a lot of things. You have autoimmune disorder reactions. Dr. Clark, he was on Fox, and he talked about all these autoimmune reactions that people are getting from complex carbs of all of their natures, corn, beans, and stuff. And it's like the same things are gluten-like chemicals that are also found in other things. And what they are is they're just large proteins. If you look at Gerson, Charlotte Gerson's got a good video on this. The S protein in meat is undigestible. It gets stuck in your blood-brain barrier in your capillaries, and that causes schizophrenic behaviors. Dr. Clark says, he's a neurologist, he says when you remove gluten and casein from the diet, you get rid of bipolar behaviors. So he's saying all these things are being reversible. Things can be reversed by removing the cause. So it's
what you're reminding me of is like MS, and I think a lot MS and some of these neurological diseases where the body has these proteins, these animal proteins floating around, and the body has to get rid of these animal proteins, and it becomes hard for the body to distinguish between the animal proteins and the body's proteins. Starts knocking out your own stuff.
Yeah, there was Janice Stangler from Hawaii did a great speech on the Vegetarian Hawaii Network, and it's all about the trouble with protein, it's called. And I love editing. Have you ever seen the way I edit stuff? I take out the mistakes. So I call it hygienifying or perfecting. So I take out like just so, and stuttering. I'll take that out. And it sounds like they're geniuses. It sounds really cool. I've done that with the whole Brilliant Body Health Summit. I've done it with so many things, right? So, but I love doing that. And I took that speech and he said that the nitrogen has to fix. Your body steals all this nitrogen. Your body can't deal with that much at a time. Your liver and your kidneys get over flooded and they just can't deal with it. And the same thing happens. I have another video about why not beans, grains, and tubers. It's because of the phosphorus levels. You put them in chronometer, the phosphorus is going to go above safe limits if you try to make monomeals of this stuff. And also Prousemian says, yeah, potatoes are boring as frick because I have to put salt on them because otherwise I can't eat them. They're just bland and tasteless, And I've got a great gallery on my albums about starch. Just all the microscopic images talking about you can forego starch altogether as long as you get enough fruit, And I know that, like, Rosalind Grubin says when you mix complex carbs and simple carbs, it's like TNT reaction. Because you remember when you're in elementary, you're going to put the baking soda and the vinegar, create a volcano. That's like, so I imagine Freely and Duramatter, that meal that they're eating of cooked food at the end could catch up in the morning when that morning meal speeds up to that. But, that reaction probably blows it out, makes a wicked explosion, doohickey or whatever, I'm sure, I don't know, because I've never done that. But I was doing this, and so in 2002, I said to the celiac woman, I said, I don't want gluten anymore, no more bread for me. I started eating only tacos. And then I was like, the GMO, remember when Taco Bell in 99 or 2000, 2001, they had GMO corn got leaked into the tacos, and it was unsafe for human consumption. It was big in the news. And I'm like, wait a minute, if there's stuff going into the human food pool that's meant for animals, why would someone eat an animal that's eating food that's unsafe for themselves? That's scary.
Thank you.
Like, that was a
Thank
convincing
you.
argument to not eat meat. I don't even eat meat. I was just telling people this, like, hey, don't eat meat because this is what's going on. And I'm not going to eat this corn because that's not for me. It's for them. And then you see Food Inc., which I think is a very anti-vegetarian movie, right? Food Inc. was paid for by McDonald's and Walmart, funded. And they were in the theater for free. I always go see these free screeners in the independent theaters. Like, I love Cowspiracy. I love speciesism, you know. I love the delicate balance. You know, there's always
Wait a minute. Tell me why you think Food Inc. was promoted by...
Because when you go see Food Inc., in the movie Food Inc., remember they say go to Dannon. Dannon bought Stonyfield Farms, right? And the Stonyfield Farms had an organic thing, and they're selling in Walmart. They said, you go here, you buy what you want, and we'll change based on what you want. And McDonald's then owned Chipotle at the time. Chipotle gave me the free tickets. So Chipotle they were giving out free tickets, and they were saying McDonald's, in the movie they say McDonald's controls the potatoes, eggs, and everything for every other fast food restaurant. It's coming from a McDonald's distributor. So McDonald's had a lot of influence in that movie. By the end of that movie, I went out of that theater screaming, said, this is the most anti-vegetarian, pro-meat movie I've ever seen. I was pissed. I was like, I put the two and two together right to the end of the movie. It didn't take me a minute past the end of the movie to realize, whoa, I've just been huckstered, by this people and making this movie. This is a psychological propaganda piece. Sure, they're showing like all this elements of the unfairness to the cows and do the farming, like cut cows open in the field rather than cutting them in the factory farm and all that stuff. And I don't like that guy because he's a big paleo guy, right? That one guy with the big glasses, and he's out there in the field doing that stuff and showing, oh, it's better, but it's not. Like, it's not compassion. That's what the new Chipotle leader says. That's why we go protest Chipotle. They pick them as a big target in direct action now because they say we're compassionate slaughter. We're killing animals in a way that's nice. There's no nice way to kill animals.
Okay. All right, Jonas. Yeah, huge point. Yeah. However, let me ask you, okay? If you're looking at getting this message to a broader public that already considers vegans to be on Mars, okay? Do you think that it's possible that there's like a transitional phase?
I transitioned for a long time. I didn't think of it that way, but I definitely was that way. And when Freely first made Raw Tip, I said, this is genius, because you're opening up a new market. This is great because maybe you can't solve your problem with Doug Graham and Christina because they don't want to talk to you. And Christina even told me, I don't even want to talk because I'm going to feed the problem. And if you heard her on Raw Living Radio, she said to Laura Fox said to her, when are you starting your chain brand restaurant Fully Raw across the nation? And I called her PR person. I said, hey, I want to be popular like Christina. Can you represent me? And they said, no, we only represent one person in each genre. And I said, oh, okay. And that's all. Thank you. That was it, But that's what it was. Her dad has hired a PR firm for her that controls her message, and she's selling a lot of juices. I'm not big into the fractionizing food. I think it's really important to keep foods whole. Because I have a great paper on antioxidants are transported by fiber. You don't transport the nutrients of fiber through your bloodstream without the fiber. I'll do citrus juice because the fiber is still in there with all the pulp. But I used to do a lot of orange juice. I used to do a lot of beet juice and ginger, and sure, that gave me a wicked rush, and I love that rush, but then I realized now I wouldn't go eat a bunch of fatty foods like after that because that would cause a lot of my, the diabetic symptoms of where the candida would overgrow and pain would happen because your body's the candida's saving your life. It's going there to eat up all the sugars because your insulin can't move them anymore because your liver's been overworked. And then once your liver's so overworked, you're going to be diabetic 1, you're going to kill your liver and you have no function. So yeah, there is what happened. I called it boilitarian. So after that, one other thing happened. Like the corn, the GMO corn, the wheat, and the leukocytosis study. No, the acrylamide study from Sweden. Remember the acrylamide study in 2002? The Swedish scientist said when you heat food over boiling temperatures, baking and frying, and now we're finding boiling. Like Victor Van Rambutan just did a video of the acrylamides found in boiling temperatures in curries. So we have finding acrylamides. I said if EPA says 0.02 parts per million is the limit tolerable in water, never safe to have your body. That's what the bacteria. There's bacteria and germs are great. They're saving your life. Every germ and bacteria in the world is in our body. They only come to life and become what they look like harmful when they're eating up the toxins and the poisons that we put into our body. They're saving our life. So I'm so grateful for it. I've never used soap in 4 years now. I don't need soap. It's amazing. I'm kind of blown away that my hair has never felt better than it's ever felt because I'm not doing this. So if I was to eat cooked food, I know it would change my body odor. I know it would change my oil content on my body, and I know I would probably have to go to that soap or lotions, but I don't need that now because my body has reached a perfect homeostasis after this 4 years. It's been 4 years since I had anything cooked right now. And then altogether I can count 11 years if I say my first 7 years.
All right, let me ask you then, Jonas. Could you characterize an average day for yourself? Do you like about how many calories do you get a day, and is it?
Never counted calories, Ever as a kid, I always just eat till I'm hungry and until I'm satiated. That's always felt like every book I've read says that. Harley and Doug Graham made a focus on calories by counting them. We have a science of calorie counting, and how do you count calories? Like Tim Van Orden says, you have to cook the food to know. You wouldn't know. And that's where we get our protein. 90% of the protein that we're getting from our body comes from the breaking down of our own cells.
Okay, but can you tell me, would you eat 8 bananas for breakfast?
I'd eat till I'm full. I'd eat a ton of bananas in a smoothie. It's easier to smoothie them, but I like to eat stuff whole, fresh, and ripe now. It makes me my digestion's a lot better when I just eat my food, because when you chew, your saliva gets this message and it builds to your stomach. So your stomach gets ready for what's going to get. When you eat one kind of thing at a time, like Christina Buccarello, I always say it, that's how I say her name. And when I saw her I volunteered for Living Raw Expo. I went up there, I ran the cameras, I ran the webcast, I got to meet all the people. Gabriel Cousins ran away from me when I asked him the glycemic load, glycemic index question. He just turned and booked, He didn't want it. He knows he's lying, And so he's out of there. But Christina told me, she's like, yeah, I don't eat any of the things I make in my videos. I only eat mono. And she's on mono citrus fast right now. We all eat citrus on the table. And we brought in a lot of grapefruits, and she was eating those. That's what she was eating. So she eats one thing at a time until she's full. That's her thing, is mono. She knows that. That's how she healed with her peach diet, So we all know who are doing this. People who are sick, they need to go fully raw because that's the only way to get fully healed. People who are maybe I have friends who are so allergic to fruit, they could never eat fruit. I say those people need to go direct to an extensive supervised water fast. Otherwise, they'll never get their organs reset to be able to assimilate, absorb, and uptake the nutrients from their food, and they're going to continue to have the allergic reactions, and that's going to cause them more every day to get worse. All
right, let me ask you then, how would you characterize the success that somebody like Dr. McDougall or Dr. Bernard or
Bernard understands the intrinsic factor of B12, but he doesn't understand that avoiding garlic and onions to not kill those I call them the squeamy jeemies, squeamy jeemies, the things that die and then we pick up their nutrients, right? But Dr. McDougall, I feel like he lost the debate against Doug Graham very much heavily, and he's coughing a lot, and he's a lot of stimulants. He's always drinking coffee, and I'm hearing he's got a thyroid disease, and I'm hearing McDougall's got some issues, and McDougall, I feel like the compromise that McDougall has made is to sell products in stores that he would never have agreed to in Forks Over Knives. He would never agree to in Food Inc., not in Food Inc., in Food Matters, and all these other movies, because he's compromising to say, let them sell my face on a soup, and that's money-oriented. Just like Jerry Ryder's making compromises to sell McDonald's and other ads to make his money, and he says, well, I'm going to benefit from it because I'll spread the vegan message. But I don't like the altruistic thing so much. I'd rather him do an empathetic thing, and I know I've helped him challenge Jerry Ryder to change a little bit, and he has said on the Veg Source, have you seen the Veg Source forum? It's a wild house in the Veg Source forum. Doug Graham used to run that. Harley got Doug Graham kicked out saying Doug Graham was dishonest, and Doug Graham was dishonest. He was saying that the Veg Source moderators were deleting stuff, but he was deleting stuff, and they were upset by that. So that was the pulling trigger that let them throw it out. So they renamed that forum Raw Till 4 now. So I'm comfortable with Raw Till 4 people. I like the stance Tanny Raw said, see it as a transitionary, see, cross that bridge, make it to the fully raw, you'll have more benefits. And people who do say, want to make the raw versus cooked debates, they'll say, yeah, raw is fully better to eat fully raw, but cooked is necessary for someone who doesn't have economic means, who doesn't have the availability, and that's definitely necessary. I say, yeah, try to find a way to get to more fresher areas. Find a way, I'm in Phoenix. I love Phoenix because I have Mexican markets I can go to for $30. I got a week worth of food. I'll start the morning with a melon. The faster digesting foods I go with first, or sweet fruits.
But Jonas, let me ask you, man, because look, you had a very open-minded mom who introduced you to these principles when you were young.
I started so clean. I never had problems. And the only problem I ever had in my life was I have a kidney that was crimped. All my life I've been running on one kidney, never knew it. I had this pain all of a sudden, cramp. I couldn't sleep. It's parasympathetic with your testicle, and it hurt so bad. And I had great health insurance. I had PPO, Blue Cross, whatever. I went to the emergency room and I said, hey, what's wrong with me? And they put that weird crap in your blood. They looked into the machine and said, your kidney nothing is moving through this kidney at all. Anytime I ever try to drink alcohol, since 14, I'm Belgian. You're allowed to drink alcohol when you're 14 years old as harm reduction in Belgium to get you used to it, to get you past it. But everybody just becomes tolerant to it. So there's tolerance and there's health. As the tolerance goes up, the health goes down. As the tolerance goes down, the health goes up. So I have a low tolerance and a high health. So my tolerance, bad substances, I'm very pick up on them. And I'm like, whoa, that's toxins. I don't want that. So when I drank alcohol, every time I drank alcohol, I was vomiting. I could not make it through a night without throwing up what I had drank in it. It just wasn't possible. So I stopped. I said, I'm not going to try to drink alcohol anymore because I want my balance to me. I want my wits about. If I'm trying to talk to a girl, I don't want to be drunk and stumbling, or I don't want to try to date rape someone or someone date raping me. I was not interested in any of that. So, and that is hard enough. I haven't found any vegetarian partners in the first place. So this is what it comes to,
Right. Okay. But Jonas, the thing I wanted to ask you is, I mean, because you were raised the way you were, and because you have such an open-minded approach, I want to see what's your perspective on the large percentage of society that doesn't have that background, and you have folks that are, say, 40, 50, 60 years old. They've been eating, barbecues and hamburgers all their life, and now they come to McDougall, and he shows them a vegan way, and they start reversing their diabetic tendencies. They start reversing heart disease tendencies. So my general point is, vegan is an excellent step. Yeah. And then if you want to try and further it by going raw, okay.
I want to call it plant-based diet, though, because veganism, I don't want to call myself vegan. I say I do veganism, and by doing veganism, it's a form of abolition. So it's a high understanding about the role of animals and use of animal products. That's why Dan McDonald will say, I'm never going to be a compassionate vegan. I'll wear my leather belt. I'm going to do my honey. I'm going to make money off selling animal products. He said, for me to do that would be like telling Whole Food not to sell grapes because they have meat. I was like, that's not fair because the grape distributor and the meat distributor are different people. Whole Foods might have the ethical issue because they're always doing rabbit meat or whatever they're doing. We've protested Whole Foods. I'd love to see a market that was like a Seventh-day Adventist market where they're all vegetarian, and that's awesome. Yeah. I like going to Seventh-day Adventist potluck people because they're very open-minded people, and they're big into like, okay, you're glad to talk about the Essene stuff. We're glad to talk about the self-healing body. We're glad to
The Seventh-day Adventists are cool. Yeah.
So they love to like teach raw foods. They're cool as can be, and they're mostly all vegetarian. They have that long-lived life thing, and it's by living. It's mental attitude. Most of it is your mental attitude and your community support that's going to cause your health to be the best. You can eat the crappiest diet in the world as long as you're happy. You'll have a long life probably. Like my friend Bernardo de la Palo, he's 113 years old. You think he's 60. He's got a few gray hairs. He's got no wrinkles. He's been eating raw his whole life, He'll have one meat dish a year for like Christmas, he'll say, That's what he does. And it's like, and he's a healthy guy. He's not sick or anything,
That's cool. What's his name, Jonas?
Bernardo de la Palo. I see him at Raw Food Potlucks out in Mesa. We have this thing called the best raw food potluck in the world, Mesa thing. And I'm like, I don't like the word best. I'm like different. Because in NBC, it's like, it's not best, it's different, and how is it different? Then we can get specific. I love getting specific into things, So here it is, like in 2008, I was going to this raw vegan potluck, and I was like, not a raw vegan potluck, never mind. I was going to raw vegan potluck since like 2004 with different groups, and they're very controversial because they're high fat, so they're all cacao and high stimulants, and it's a smorgasbord. You don't know what you're going to, like a bomb factory. You're going to have a horrible digestion after that meal, and it's like you're mixing millions of things together. And the people are very on edge there, because they know the movement's fractionizing because of what Doug Graham's saying, and hygiene's been around, and people have been trying to suppress hygiene. Even Ann Wigmore wants to make her break with hygiene and say, here's my wheatgrass, and here's my, from Victor Kulvinskas and his sprouts, and Giuliano and his, what did he do? Giuliano did something, man. I got a great video called Gastronauts 99. It's an article from Spin Magazine that I turned into an audio piece, and it's great because that's one of my first videos I ever made, and it's got images of, it's so funny because it's talking about, they called them Instincto. They didn't call themselves Paleo then, they called themselves Instincto. And they're
I remember that, yeah.
Raw meat, and they're talking about, it's so funny because like we traded little green pieces of paper for raw meat. We didn't have to go into the wild and hunt our animals, and it's so funny because I'm picking images that go with the words, and the images sometimes go against the words, and it's really funny when that happens. You're like, it's so funny. I can still get humor out of watching it, but so like all these people try to make their break of their distance. Like David Wolf stole that book from the astronaut A.T. Havania, whatever his name is, from Iran, and put his name on it and never gave him credit about, it's called Eating Raw, or Nature's First Law. The two books, I got both books and looked at them. Yep, total plagiarism,
Wow.
So he did that with Frederick Paente and the other guy, what's his name, who they're broken ways now, but so people love to stoke controversy. Frederick Paente, he had that ex-wife Victoria, right? Her name was. She ran that one website that was low-fat, raw vegan against 30 Bananas a Day because 30 Bananas a Day was being very militant about. Because I've been kicked off there. I've been banned 5 times from 30 Bananas a Day, right? But I have my friends, the Peacekeepers, right? So the Peacekeepers are in like this. I don't know. It's kind of like throwing this out there now, like no one's ever heard this, but like it's very much of like insurrection if you think of it that way. Like the Peacekeepers are fully raw, and all the raw to force peacekeepers have quit. You know, they had a lot of cognitive dissonance and thrown their hands in the air. I don't want to be part of this anymore. And Freely is the runner of the thing, but she's not directly involved. It's the Peacekeepers who used to keep things raw, who are still there, and they still know the benefits of being raw. And when I was experimenting from 2008 to 2010, I spent 2 years experimenting. Okay, I'm gonna try potatoes, whole beans. I'm gonna try rice, sticky rice. And I learned sticky rice is not sweet. You have to add a lot of sugar to the sticky rice. The Thai restaurant is not making just sticky rice, it's just this delicious rice that's sticky and sweet. No, they add tons of sugar to the sticky rice. It's sticky. But yeah, so like here in 2010, I made the commitment. I said, yeah, this is my last bean. I used to go to my Mexican food restaurant. Story's pretty fun. So I first moved here in 99 to Phoenix. I was getting a burrito, a big burrito, and it had everything in it, from pico de gallo to potatoes to beans to rice. And I didn't really know. I just didn't care. Just throw the refried beans in there. And they like, oh, that was vegetable oil. Maybe there was some lard in there. I didn't know, but because I had learned to ask the questions. I said, so I always ask, ¿tienes manteca en las frijoles? ¿Tienes pollo agua en el arroz? And crema agria in the sour cream. So I knew the questions to ask if there were, in the guacamole. I didn't want sour cream in my guacamole. I didn't want lard in my beans, and I didn't want chicken broth in my rice. If they had chicken broth in rice, I'd skip it. So then, then when I took out the acrylamide, I was like, no potatoes. So I had a bean and rice burrito, and then I took out the garlic and the onions, and I took out the gluten. So I took out the tortilla wrap. So I was making a plate at one point of rice, beans, pico de gallo, and guacamole. I had like 4 quadrants. Looked like the plate from Obama, Michelle Obama, right? And so then I take out another thing. I said, wait a minute, I don't want the grains now. I'm taking out the grains, because I know that I'm taking out the onions. So then I have just a plate, so no more pico de gallo, and I don't want it's called xanthium gum. They mix in the guacamole as a mixer. I was like, I don't want xanthium gum. So I want a whole avocado. So give me avocado, give me tomatoes, and give me lettuce. And I get a big plate just full of those things, right? And then they have the salad bar, which is full of 3 cucumbers, right? And it's the hardest struggle for me was getting off a hot sauce because I knew it wasn't helping me. I knew it was shocking my system. I knew it was stimulating. And I still sometimes ooh, a little hot sauce. Like Chris Kendall tried to fight the hot sauce too with my advice, and he did for a while, but then he still does it. And someone noted at the UK Fruit Fest, Chris Kendall made a hot sauce dish, and immediately mucus was coming up. And he was sniffling, and that's how it is. The body's protecting itself, and it knows as a volatile oils, like Gerson says. She has a list of these herbs no, these herbs yes, because these are the aromatic acids, these are the volatile oils, there's alkaloids, right? Inorganic compounds and organic compounds, mineral compounds in foods. And you can use the organic mineral compounds. The plant is the middleman. So the plant is pulling the minerals out of the soil, holding it in suspense. So the more liquid, like a lot of people say, iceberg has nothing in it. And I'm like, not right. Iceberg, if you look at the NutriFacts, it's got just as much as iceberg. It's got a little better fat ratio, more omega-3s than 6s. Sure, I'd like to have Boston butter lettuce first, but Boston butter lettuce is like $2.99, $3.99. That's not affordable. Iceberg can get for 33 cents,
That's a great point, Jonas. That's a great point.
It's just about the same. The protein is 1 point lower than iceberg, so it's there. And the more mineral and water, juicy, rich, everything. That's why I prefer to have juicy, rich fruits, because that's got the minerals and the vitamins ready to take into my cells, immediately uptake. Like, there's very little digestion involved with the sweet fruits. The subacid fruits a little more, the acid fruits a little more. I love the acid fruits and the fats. When I was growing up as a kid, I ate avocado with lemon in the hole all the time. I hated avocado. But if it had lemon in the hole, I loved it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's just what it was. Avocado was my thing,
Let me ask you, Jonas. How are you with mixing fruits and veggies?
Do follow the food composition rules? Yeah.
Do you try to do monomeal as much as you can, or what?
I do, but then it's all for me. What I eat is based on what's ripe. So if this and that is ripe, if I got peaches and nectarines that are failing, I'll throw those in tomatoes. I got tomatoes. That'd be a great dish together. Mangoes or tomatoes are great together. Subacid and acid make a great sauce. I really like, but I wouldn't mix the subacid with the fat. I played with that for a while. No, it causes gas. Mixing a peach and avocado with the acid fruit, tomatoes, Because you can see my food album on Facebook. I have a whole album of food. I buy every week I put 4 years of what I've eaten. You can see everything I've eaten for 4 years, except for like when I was out at the restaurants, maybe buying plates of lettuce or drinking juices. Because the Mexican culture here is so amazing because they're all about fresh food. If you look up, I did this research. And half of Native Americans were vegetarian vegans, right? There's a divide line, and people in South America in the tropical regions, they were fruitarians. They were they're a fruitarian, long-lived culture. They were 7 feet tall. They were strong. They were never sick. That's the Inca and the Maya, the Aztec and the Maya, I mean. So these people were really healthy when the imperialists came to America. They slaughtered these people wholesale. These people did not have the immunity. They tried to live. So like people want to blame it all on the slaughter, but people want to blame it all on the lack of. It's a two-way street. Everything's a two-way street. I like Howard Zinn. But I also understand history is told by the winners, but it's really important to recognize, people in the Americas, they wanted to live like the people. They saw them as gods. They wanted to live just like the people who came. There are horses. So they saw the horses escape. In this Gina Law paper, she's talking about this and how the horse escaped from some of the, the conquistadors, and the Indians got a hold of it and raised it and used it to hunt down and kill all the buffalo. Before that time, only 1 or 2 tribes even ate buffalo, Wow. And then all of a sudden they wiped the buffalo out because that became this thing. They were selling it to the white man for the hide, and they just let the whole meat go to waste. It's like such a wasteful practice, so destructive towards nature when they used to live in harmony with nature, and they were totally lost their way because of guns, germs, and steel. They got these new weapons. They got exposed to germs, and that all happened because people had more time on their hands 10,000 years ago in Jordan from refining grains, and 7,000 years ago we started slaving all these animals with domestication to make us grow more grains faster. So
it's funny. It's funny you're saying that because I was just thinking today, this period in American history where they just invented the trains and they had these folks sitting on these trains with rifles blowing away buffalo for sport. I mean, it's such a senseless, wasteful act.
And they're doing it for each other for the money. They're all doing it for the money, so it all goes back to the money. And now that we have Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin's going to hold people accountable. There's transparency and you have privacy for yourself. But it's a closed system, and it's distributed and decentralized and encrypted, meaning no one can cheat. You're not going to have the Federal Reserve just printing quantitative easing infinity and like causing the rest of the world to be mad at us for cheating on them, and forcing their goods to come in cheap and our money to be held in reserve by them. We have Bitcoin, so money and nature are going to harmonize. We're going to have a system where people are going to be held to account by cryptocurrency. And it's a fair market. It's a very free market in exchanges, and it's going to change the world in ways we can't even imagine now. Cryptocurrency, the blockchain it's called, is scalable. We can do everything. We can put Facebook on the blockchain. We can put all these things on blockchain. It's going to take away centralized control. It's going to allow individual autonomy and decentralization, and it's going to allow people to do things the way they want to do it and to have a closed system that's not going to allow them to just cheat, and it's not going to allow wars to happen funded by this money that's just totally fake,
Right. Since you bring this up, can you just briefly tell the viewer, and I think we better wrap this up. We've been going over an hour, but do you have Bitcoin now? Do you use it? Is it a currency that you can actually exchange for real material goods?
Oh yeah, just put yourself on the website Local Bitcoin. You can exchange Bitcoin for dollars with anybody you want. You can trade and buy, like Peter Sears, he's a peacekeeper on 30 Bad. He's a really good guy with Bitcoin. He's got a lot of websites. I collect Bitcoin. I take donations of Bitcoin from my lawyer I try to raise. I sell dates now. I've been harvesting local foraged dates, like Black Sphinx dates. I could just go grab a whole handful and show them to you here. I got these rare Iranian dates I found the other day. Oh my God. I'm selling $5 a pound, and I made this chart. Like I'm beating everybody who's selling dates, Now I got to keep up with it and like go get more, but I'm loving what I'm doing with that. But I can Jonas, with that. Yeah.
Fill me in on this because I'm clueless. Are you telling me that there's like these wild date palms in Arizona?
Oh yeah, everywhere. There's dates everywhere. No one's dealing with them. People don't even know their food. People think they're just a nuisance. They fall on the sidewalk. They're sticky. The bird, the rats, whatever. But I'm going up there. I'm picking them down. I'm housing them with a rope, and I'm collecting them. I'm drying them. I'm cleaning them, and they're amazing. Like that's the number one. That and prickly pear and figs and my pomegranate trees are looking amazing this year. One year I sold them 50 cents a piece. I didn't know how much they were. They're like $4 a piece. I never knew, these pomegranates. But so much stuff. We're in this subtropical climate here with 2 seasons. I was surprised there's not more fruitarians in Phoenix because I feel like we're the mecca of America. We have 400 miles of canals here. The Native American Hohokams developed this city as a 100-mile wide orchard. We're geared for total, like everywhere is irrigated here. Every 2 weeks I get total flood irrigation. we have no water problems here because all the water from the whole state goes to these dams, and we stop the water. I bet like the Indians had a problem because the floods come, they deal with it really fast, and they don't have a way to control that system. But now I don't agree with dams and how they hurt fish and all this stuff, but it's a system that we've made, and we have a control over how the water goes. We always have water, all these canals, and we've regulated our system into, but people aren't functioning that way. People here live in their own mentality. Like, I don't even use air conditioning anymore. I mean, maybe it gets to 115, but my body, I feel like I'm running cool. I got this big bruise on my arm here. I don't know if you can see it, but I just got poked. I wasn't even got hit. I just got poked with one of the palm fronds. They must have poisons in the needles, like a cactus, and yeah, man, like an allergen, and it totally blacked up just out of the hole. It wasn't like a bruise; it was a reaction from being poked with this thing.
All right, dude. Let me throw 3 nutrients at you for a quick summary of your perspective on them. The first is B12.
Intrinsic factor. I've never had a B12 problem. I feel like we get our own B12 as long as we avoid preventing the uptake, and it's really important. That's why I feel like fully raw is, I don't like the word fully. I like to say majority, like fresh, like eating fresh food in abstinence of other, maybe. I don't know, something like that. I don't know.
High raw.
Yeah, just that's so important. Like even like a little bit, my last bean meal was so happy. Like when I started, I had a heavy feeling after doing that. I was like, wow, I feel heavy down, makes me tired. And I feel like things have just improved in my life, and I'm still improving. I'm up to 15 handstand press-ups now, I do them on the dance club. I love doing them. I could only do like 12 pull-ups before, all through 13. Now I can do like 19 weeks after just cutting out anything cooked with no effort. My VO2 max being high makes a huge effect on me. I'd love to know Harley's new VO2 max number. He's not publishing that. So Harley exaggerates a lot, and then he's not totally transparent about everything like that. But he has a better cause, and I believe in he's doing, But he's doing the little compromises that I feel like if you didn't do, and just throw that book out there, they're doing things, and they're compromising. They're criticizing people too much. I don't like criticism like that. I'd rather see him do observations and request direct to the people and develop the connection. And you can't make a request to someone until you have a connection with them. You can't just be like, I'm deleting you because I don't agree with you, and I'm not going to ever have that connection. That's going to only cause more distance than it is going to ever get to the resolution. So they've only building it. Like you've seen these people on YouTube, they're fighting and they're making videos against me and stuff, Tino and Ryan, and I'm like, hey, you guys. And I kind of responded in my New Mexico trip. I kind of sat there and kind of talked about it in the dark and just talked about it and said, I like to see some win-win resolution here. And it's really, I understand why they're doing that. And there's a stimulating effect. Like I like G.C. Clements or Hilton Hatima. He's got this video I made into a video audio. It's called The Harms of Stimulation. And it talks about all the things that are stimulants and the effects of those stimulants. Just like Sylvester Graham made a great thing about stimulation and its effects on us. And it's once you understand the concept, you're like, yeah, I want just nutrimentation. I don't want stimulation. I'm going to feel like I'm higher than I've ever been in my life, like 10 times higher, always feeling better. And if I ever have anything that's a stimulant or a toxin, it's going to take me down. And I'm going to realize that's why first it's going to take me up, and then it's going to take me down. Like one thing that was really foundational in my life, when my mom left me with that nun, ex-nun, great to be loved with an ex-nun than a current nun, right? but
it's interesting.
Spirit, open mind.
It's different.
Yeah, very, very better. But even though the macrobiotic was kind of twisted, she's very into like multi-level marketing and any Amway, whatever she could do, she'll do it. So, but she was doing this thing, drinking coffee all the time, and she's 80 years old now, and she still does that to this day, huffing and puffing, drinking the coffee, huffing and puffing. Always nervous energy. And she's trying to pay me 25 cents every cup of coffee she drinks as a fine to get herself to quit. I had like $400. And I'm like, how is that going to help me stop you from drinking your coffee? I don't even want to do that. I don't want to be finding myself because I feel like bad or wrong about what I'm doing to make someone else rich. I'd rather just not drink coffee. And I felt like state drugs were oppressing me. A lot of people were growing marijuana and being broken up in their families. And I feel like it was alcohol, tobacco, and nicotine that were, alcohol and nicotine that were being taxed so heavily. And I call those state drugs, and they're very addictive and they're very harmful, And marijuana is very harmful too. People want to deny that. It's just a medicine like any other medicine. All medicine poisons. Maybe it's the weakest medicine on the planet, and so people are healing in spite of it. They're not healing because of it. They're healing because they gave their body space to do its own thing, even in spite of the little bit of pain killing or a little bit of suppressant they're doing. Normal people abandon me. You're not coming to our meetings anymore because we don't take that stance. We're trying to be medical people, and you're saying decriminalize everything so people can learn from their mistakes and no one will even care about it, like Portugal or like Uruguay.
Right. All right. Well, listen, Jonas, man, I'm gonna wrap it up. So many topics. So many topics.
I was looking forward to talking to you, so I knew it would happen one day. So here.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and we'll just have to do a part 2.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Excellent. I'm happy to have talked with you. So.
Because I want to go a little more in depth into the natural hygiene history.
Yeah.
I think you'll just be a fountain on that one.
I do that with Gabe Smith on the Vegan Truth before he stopped doing the Vegan Truth. I did the last show on there, and that was a great show. I threw out so much so fast. I was really trying to break down MVC process and hygiene. I didn't really get enough time to do the hygiene history, and I have so much of it collected. I mean, I don't know, like maybe say I can turn my table around here and show you some of my books. I mean, 2 of these shelves are just full of hygiene books, you know? All books on natural hygiene, you know?
Well, I love your library, and I love how you
my gallery of new and old books. It's called, and it's just so much. Yeah.
Well, it's so cool that you have such an open approach to it, and you're not. I'm sure Amazon.com is not your only resource.
No. There's a lot of books can't be found on Amazon. Like there's this new general semantics book I want to get right now. It's by this guy from India. You're never gonna find that on Amazon, you know.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be a resale on Amazon. I tried to sell the dates on Amazon. They would not let me sell the dates on Amazon, you know. So I just got to do it by myself. And I suppose it's a supply and demand thing. I've only got so much supply. I only got so much energy. And climbing these trees, I can sweat a gallon climbing one of these trees, man. It is not easy climbing one of these palm trees. 500 feet, like 50, 60 feet up in the air. And it's swaying. And the hardest part is not really the climbing. Sure, it's tricky sometimes. And every tree's different. And sometimes there's this big bunch of crap on the top. You got to break it all out in your face. But then,
dude, you gotta get that on video so we can.
I have some videos on there. If you look at my Jonas Sunshine YouTube channel, I put it there today. And Taylor's up in the tree with he's up the camera there.
I'm glad you said that. So very quickly, your YouTube channel is Jonas Space Sunshine.
No space.
No space. So it's just Jonas Sunshine together.
Yeah, and then my other, I have, if you linked, I linked both of them together, but the other one's my more like, I used to be anonymous, being like, I'm just this anonymous person who no one knows who I am. But then I gave up on that. I kind of linked them together. When I started making those My God Heals Does Yours, I'm reading that Ralph Rashig book. Oh my gosh, that's like one of my favorite books. It's very short, it's very concise, it very repeats itself, but it's to the point and it's just saying it how it is. And it's Ralph Rashig from 1988. And he's amazing, yeah. Like, have you seen the movie? If you go to my YouTube channel, it's called Lycophron, Lycophron.
Okay.
He's the guy who was in the Greek culture wars versus Aristotle. He's trying to make a G prime, Greek without the Aristotelian thinking, but Aristotle won. But the war is not over. The culture war to make ourselves have a better society, and make ourselves have more peace, and to be more in congruence with nature. Because I feel that's what religion's doing. It's trying to connect us back to nature. It's a tool that we use. Like if you look at the Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that 12,000-year-old find we found, that they were worshiping wild animals at the bottom. Then they built a new temple on top of that, and they started worshiping domesticated animals. So they've changed their worship based on animals. Animals are the basis of religion, and it's our relationship to them, either fearing them or subjugating them. And we've dominated, I don't know, I feel like there's been monkey wars in the past where we've slaughtered wholesale different species of Homo sapiens that, would have existed too. Like, they find that white people and Asian people, we have the DNA in our DNA of Neanderthals where black Africans don't. So we left the African continent, we've had a hard time, and we've intermixed with other tribes of Homo sapiens. And the Cro-Magnon man was a taller, stronger man than us. So we've, just like Tony Wright says, we've shrunken. I don't like Tony Wright calling people assholes or dumb and stuff and stupid, but, I think he could say a little better, that people have lower intelligence based on, just be more specific. It's not that hard to do. Just a few more words. People like to take shortcuts. And I feel like when we take away the nominalizations and break them down, and we take away things they sound like blame and shame, we take those away and we break them into our separate needs and feelings, and we ask them as a question, not with a strategy of how to do it, but just get the feedback, and then people can hear us, then we build that connection. That's all it takes to build connection. And it's just a practice, and it's a beautiful practice, and it's the hardest thing to keep sometimes, but when we do it, it makes life so much better.
Love it, Jonas. Love it. Build the connection and transform through the connection. Love it.
It's intense, huh? It's not even a bruise. It's just from the plant. Huh?
Dude, that is a huge bruise, man.
It's like it's a poison or something, man. It shows the body's working hard to don't let that come in.
All right, my friend, man. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having us. I'm gonna try Taylor. I've seen Taylor walking around here somewhere, so I'm gonna try to go round him up, and we got so much to do. It's overwhelming. I feel like I got 30 things to do. What do I focus on first? Okay, getting the trees. I gotta focus. The trees are the first priority. My friend Kite93, he's got this great song. Look, it's called "Raised by Trees." It's like all a song, all about how trees raised us. I feel like, just like Tony Wright said, they got the phytonutrients that caused us to be who we are. I've got papers how we've been frugivores for 60 million years. We have evidence of eating fruit.
Oh, I love what you're saying here. Did you see this little thing in the Cosmos series where they said not only are we genetically related to animals, we're genetically related to trees and plants.
Oh yeah, because they're building us. They're with them. They're the keys to our lock.
Yeah.
So like another thing you want to look up a lot of information that I put out. I love putting out papers on there, even like news articles that I find that I really like. Sometimes I rewrite them in like E prime and non-absolutism, and it's called a Scribd account, and it's called just Jonas Sunshine Scribd, and you'll find it. So
okay,
I put like a lot of papers on there, like just research papers, a lot of fasting papers, a lot of just even the starch stuff, a lot of stuff. I find and I like I like sharing it. So. Sharing is happy. Like I big into the pirate party. The political pirate party is a lot of people. I've faced a lot of persecution, right? Be it from CPS, be it from the copyright authorities. I feel like information wants to be free. When every new idea, there's no new ideas. Ideas come from other people sourcing other people's ideas, and that's why derivative works exist. That's why we have the DMCA. So I fought David Wolf. I fought Swayze Foster. I fought Mrs. Wilde. I fought Kevin Rogers. I fought Doug Graham, and I've won these people. Only people I lost against were Vegan Ninja Bunny, Dr. Oz. I lost. I didn't give me a chance to beat Dr. Oz because it was a third strike, so it's like no chance, right? So I've lost 5 YouTube channels for my style of how I take sourcing and I re-edit. And people I feel like copyrights, information wants to be shared. You can't violate the laws of math. The Pirate Party is the largest political party in the world, and our ideas are transparency of institutions, privacy for individuals. So if you want to, just like Jefferson says, if you want an idea to be secret, keep it a secret. But as soon as you let it go, it's fair game.
You're broaching onto this huge area. It's like property ownership, copywriting, all this stuff, man.
It's huge, man. Like, we're sharing. Nature wants us to share. Nature's got trees. I think the role of humans is to travel paths, and we all take responsibility. The path that we travel, we make it more beautiful. We water these trees. We take care of this nature, and, we organize it. I mean, like, I'm sure the most conflict would come about from people eating the fruit from a tree before it's ripe. Like, I have this friend in Tempe. I really worry about him because he's not eating any food. He's trying to live on 100 calories a day. And he's trying to eat nothing but foraged food. He's telling me he's eating unripe pomegranates. And I'm like, dude, don't do that. He showed us where the oranges were. I'm very grateful for him for showing us where all the citrus was. And I've been eating half of my year has been free citrus. So I'm very happy for that. I feel like rock star. Like I'm on rocket fuel when I'm on the citrus. But it's better to eat it again than just drink it. But I love drinking it, But I worry about him because he's getting people to do saltwater flushes. And I feel like those saltwater flushes are what killed Andre Maurice, Use the liver flushes, like eating a cup of salt and then drinking a cup of oil. I mean, we know oil, like all this McDougal, Bernard, Clapper, you name them, like Esselstyn, Novak, Graham, Lyle, Blaylock, they all say no oil, no salt, no refined sugar. Those things are fractured food, and when you put them in your body doesn't know how to deal with them. It's going to cause your body to steal from its reserves. You're going to be nutrient deficient, and it's going to hurt your body. And the whole book from T. Colin Campbell is so important,
Yeah.
T. Colin Campbell understands. Bernard understands. Bernard wrote a forefront to Tasha Lee's book, and she's got type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes are showing how the fruit diet is helping them manage and have low insulin.
This is a whole nother fascinating issue.
It's so important. Some people like Mike Velocity showing he can lift 3 times. He's making new personal best. That's amazing what he's doing. It's about, it's like Patrick Babimian, the strongest man in the world. He's not doing vegan. That Russian arm wrestler guy beating the arm wrestle in the bobsled, gold records. He's doing 80-10-10, whole, fresh, raw food. Maybe not in the off season, but when he's training Olympic athletes, they know to eat fresh, clean food that digests fast when they're training. It's, there's multiple videos about, what's that guy's name? Johan Blake and, the other guy, the fast track runners.
I think I've heard of Blake, but
they're both the 1 and 2, right? And they're the fastest runners, and they're eating 16 bananas a day. Before I run, I eat 16 bananas. Direct glycogen energy. Boom, nothing to it, It's so simple. That's why I love it. It's all simple. Simplicity is virtue. All these things are based on simple ideas about the individual having sovereignty. We all are responsible for our own choices, like Doug Graham said, take responsibility. He didn't take enough responsibility himself. That's kind of like very cluing in sometimes. When someone tells someone else to do something, it's something more, it says more about themselves. Better to make a request and better to use empathy, on the situation, because otherwise people are defending something that don't defend. Be open.
Yeah, there's gotta be some heart, man. There's gotta be some heart.
It's a connection. I have a whole, if you look at my gallery and my album, it's called Needs, Diagrams, etc. I've collected so many, I have probably more nonviolent communication images, and it's all about heartfelt connection, how to enhance the heart connection. And one is called giraffe, because the giraffe has the biggest heart, and the jackal has the smallest, and like not the smallest heart. Jackal is just a pack animal, low to the ground, very just aggressive and instinctual. But the giraffe is a long sight. They look ahead of time, and they make bigger plans, and they can, the biggest heart, the longest nerve. So the giraffe is picked as the animal to represent the nonviolent communication system. And there's just beautiful images in that gallery. And it's like so much the key concepts. The universal assumption, we all share the same needs. All actions are attempts to meet needs. It's just beautiful. And yeah, it challenges a lot of things about wrong and right thinking. And that's one of the things about the general formulation is like beyond wrong and right thinking. It's not that things are wrong and right. Even Doug Graham, I appreciate for saying this. It's like, it's not wrong and right, it's the consequences of the actions. It's being responsible for the actions that you take. You take an action, you'll have those consequences. And people can't avoid those. And that's why I don't like the Obamacare, because I went to vote the other day, and they got these people that swarm you after you get out of the voting poll, telling you to sign up, force you on the Obamacare. And I'm like, I had a battle with these people. I'm like, no. The medical model is incorrect. It's based on incorrect assumptions. And it's like, I agree with the surgeons. You might need an emergency surgery or something, or if you're going to make some aesthetics, that's your choice. But for as far as physicians and doctors, no. I call myself an anti-doctor, anti-doctor sunshine. Like the sunshine is what you need. Get sunshine on your body. Like I had this gay friend. He's like, come sunbathe with me naked on my roof. He just didn't want to see me naked. He was explaining an important point about sunshine on your genitals is a very important part of building vitamin D. And just like Ann Osborne said, you need sunshine on your body. Don't wash your body off for 3 days after full body sun, and that's how you absorb your vitamin D. Like you're talking about the third nutrient, it's probably vitamin D, and you're talking about another nutrient.
Iodine. Yeah.
Iodine. That's about soil. Like iodine problem is huge because when we spray NPK inorganic fertilizers on soil, the iodine's in the soil. Like Vic Oz, I can't pronounce her last name, but Vic. She runs an organic farm. She tested her soil for iodine, high in iodine. Her iodine was tested with the blood with the doctor. She came out with 50% iodine. They said that's about normal. 54%. That's what we find in everybody.
Huh.
And then she went to all these doctors, got all this verification from Doug Graham. Doug Graham says, well, if you don't have a symptom, don't worry about it, right? But everybody says, that's kind of average. But the iodine, I know some people say like John Kohler, put seaweed on your mulch and your soil to build build iodine in your soil. So people have these high iodines in the soil. But the problem is when we kill the soil with inorganic fertilizers, Monsanto again, we're having these people with our chemicals in Dow killing our biomicrome and humic acid, all these things that take thousands of years to develop. Those things are carriers. Just like the plant is the transfer agent from the soil to us, there's other things that live in the soils that transfer from the plant to that soil. There's a middleman, and when you kill that middleman, you're not getting that transfer anymore. So it's so important to have biodynamic, veganic, all these things. I even do humanure, but it's so important to do this stuff.
I love what you're saying here, and one thing we often forget, there's always a new headline in the news about this recent nutrient that's just been discovered, and the point is that's going to keep happening.
Yeah, we don't know because we know 1/30,000th of any of the nutrients at all. So okay, we know we have some measurements, and those measurements are all based through cooking. So they're cooking a blood to measure. That's not. Maybe we have some live blood analysis now that's getting better. So we're getting better. We're learning more. As we learn more, we adapt. But it's still just all science that gets found. If you have a hygienic interpretation, it supports the hygiene. It supports the live simply. Supports guided by nature. Get out of the way. Let the body heal. We're all perfect. Just like the Essene said, everybody's the miracle. We all relive. It's not about the Romans forcing their Jesus relive myth because they want to say more power for their empire. And, because that's what they wanted. They wanted to say these people are kooky. That's what they're saying. We want to merge all the myths of our Mediterranean empire into one myth. We called it Osiris. We changed it last minute. Dia Murdoch wrote about this in The Greatest Minds. And she talks about, probably Campbell you're talking about or Stravinsky. But
it's fascinating. Around the time of Christ, there were all these, God and human form myths.
Yeah. The Romans wanted to merge them all into one so they could consolidate the power of their empire. They wanted to stop human sacrifice. They wanted to make one last human sacrifice, make it so mythological, make it the sun and the rise, connect it to everything, just like that first part of Zeitgeist that she helped put together. She doesn't agree with them anymore in the Zeitgeist because I try to help Zeitgeist. I feel like their problem is hierarchy. Their problem is proprietary systems. They ban all the open source people, and their problem is a lack of nonviolent communication, a lack of consensus process. Without consensus process, we don't move forward. I do Food Not Bombs every week for 16 years. We feed hundreds of homeless people vegan food, and they love it. They know to come to us. They know we have what they want. I cook tons of raw tofu, hygienic dishes for them, and I make tons of huge fruit salads. I love cutting stuff.
Jonas, that is beautiful. You take that to folks in Phoenix?
It's focused around the world. There's thousands of cities around the world that do food not bombs. I have a whole, on my script, there's a whole paper, How to Start Your Own Food Not Bombs. Keith McHenry started it in 1984 when Reagan instituted this new policy that he said, this is going to cause soup lines. There was no soup kitchen lines at the time. He said, the soup kitchen line's coming back, and I'm going to make it come back by starting a protest action that's going to feed people for free vegan food. His name is Keith McHenry. He just did the True North fasting. He headlined the local global justice conference in Tempe this year. I've been to that thing 12 years in a row now. That's an amazing conference.
I've seen that True North. I talked to him about
today. It's cheap. Like, why pay $12,000? You pay $160, right? Like, and see why? Maybe they're not going to do full hygienic, but if you ask them to, they will. Dr. Goldhammer's in the book. He knows what hygiene is. He's not.
Yeah.
Seeing a more, they call it integrative approach. I don't agree with Dr. Weil or something from ADCU who wants to be integrative and call or Dr. Lodi, who's in Mesa, who wants to call integrative, like still using chemotherapy, still using drugs and poisons. I like Dr. Goldhammer's approach where it's like, yeah, or Dr. Graham, well, maybe to save a life, we'll do something. But the idea is to work off of that. It's not to stay on it forever like my biggest detractor I feel like in the world is Don Bennett, and he's always after me, making websites against me. He's always he's not representing what I say accurately. He's saying I said stuff I didn't say, and he's putting quotes that I use under other people's names, and I'm telling him I want you to change this, and he always says, I don't understand you, I'm leaving, and he'll get upset and throw a fit and take off, and I'm like, dude, let's work this out with compassion. He's like, no, I want dispassionate. I'm like, dispassionate's not going to work. He's I want you to be open-minded. I said, open-minded is not going to work. It's going to be openness, it's going to be connection. And then he's like, you have great things to say, but. I'm like, oh, man, it's just, I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it because people want to not have a deficiency. But when you correct the deficiency in the way you're correcting it, rather than, like, he's got websites dissing fasting. That's the only reason I even said anything is he's got a website saying fasting causes deficiency. He said that right on his website. And I said, hey, your website says this. And then, on 30 Bad, he had a problem with, like, animal products and some of the supplements, and they get rid of them, and that's what their excuse, and D vitamin or something, right? But and I was, like, saying this, and he didn't want to acknowledge it, and then he made another website about how there's a fasting with a little bit of nutrients. Well, that's not fasting when you're adding a little nutrients. Fasting means no nutrients. You're taking it all from the autolysis of the body. You're breaking down the ketosis of your fat cells. Everything's in your body. You can live off your body for 6 months with nothing, just with water, because your body has enough in it.
Jonas, you're making me think. The irony is that I believe in the value of therapeutic fasting. The irony, though, is that when you get to the diet where you're at, you hardly need fasting anymore at all because you're processing the stuff so cleanly.
I'm running so clean. I love it.
So it's interesting. It's almost like therapeutic fasting is a useful tool for sad dieters.
Yeah, I think it's very important for them, but then the hardest thing is be able to reverse all their gains as long as they don't keep up with a clean food after they do it.
Right.
You can do it, but you'll lose everything you did it for. So we got so long, huh? Like, it's like we got a new topic. We're like, oh, go, this is awesome, and I love talking. So like,
dude.
So yeah,
Jonas, thank you, sir, for taking the time. Real pleasure.
I'll go pick some dates, man. I'm gonna. Yeah, watch for those videos. You'll see. I'm trying to my videos are kind of rough, but I don't mind. I'm not trying to be professional. I just want to get it out there.
Dude, I love the honesty. I love it. It's you, man. It's you. It's you. I love it. It's
important to put it out there, to put out the message. And like, I have a group on Facebook called HCLFRV Compassionate Liberty, and it's just like there's only a few members, but it's just combining the three. So it has the symbol of 80-10-10, it's got the symbol of libertarianism, and it's got the symbol of nonviolent communication. And I'm always like taking pieces from like what's that guy Will Tuttle? He liked how he writes, but I like correct it a little bit, because I like to apply the non-absolutism and the E prime to things, and it makes it beautiful. I'm like, wow, it's way more powerful a piece. Like all like manly men of the coming future was another one I made a video on, and that was a good video because I like picking the images and putting it to the words. So it's kind of like a video slideshow with these great images, and like children are starving because of wheat, because we're feeding the animals the wheat. And that Cowspiracy movie was such a powerful movie to bring home the fact that Greenpeace is being paid off by the farm and dairy groups to not cover the #1 issue for the global warming, if that's their issue. So that's not what they're worried about, And so the chemtrails, that it just came out. Snowden released it. Yeah, they're doing that. The jet fuel companies, the government have conspired to try to stop the global warming. We go through cycles all the time. The Earth is built into cycles. We're a minuscule effect. Sure, we might have an effect, But the Earth is in this cycle. We can't try to alter the cycle of Earth. We need to adapt to it and try to live through it. If Yellowstone blows, we could all die, you know? We had this thing 60 million years ago where that thing in Philippines blew, we almost all died, you know? We're very lucky to be where we are, you know? Count our blessings, you know, for our luck. That's just like what I like what Richard Dawkins says like that, but sometimes I disagree with the way Richard Dawkins uses his words too. But I like to encourage people, challenge people to step it up a little bit, and then we can all grow from it. It's not like I'm gonna be angry at them and like call them names and try to make a war with them. I want to make a peace, you know? It's like building a new strength.
I like it. Thinking outside the box. And
I think I helped Grant. I helped Dan the man too. Like just by being hypercritical of him, or like just by pointing. I don't even hypercritical. I just take stuff he says and I just boom boom highlight it and just make it into a funny video. Same with Dr. Morse. Funny video where he's like, I'll take the animals and kill it and put the glands in my alcoholic tinctures. And I got so many friends who've been taking those herbs who are still just as sick because alkaloids. Like I was saying, plants have poisons in them. They don't want you eating the plant. They're glad to make you the fruit. They don't want you. We need the diversity in our fruit back. We're doing a monocrops culture. The fruits have been demineralized by our ruining the soil. But sure, we can build that back by letting things be more wild. Like dates, all these date cultivars, they're dates that are unnamed. Every date is a new date tree, like an apple seed, you know? Sure, I might have found these beautiful black spanks and you can tear the root off the thing and make a new exact copy, but you can also make a brand new tree that no one's ever heard of. You know, it might take 20 years to even know what it's going to be like, but they're all over the place. And I think it's really worth it. That's our job on Earth, is to cultivate the trees, raised by trees. So, hey, we manage the trees. We got to be kind to our trees, otherwise we're done for. And when the Earth blows and the clouds come and all our trees die, we're just as much as in trouble.
Jonas, such good stuff, man. Such good stuff.
Well,
you be careful out in the sun there, man. Be careful up on those.
I feel like I'm really immune to the sun. I get bit by mosquitoes a lot, and they don't even make bumps anymore. I'm like, well, I'll let you feed, I guess. But I'm getting better with the sun. You know, I need more sun all the time, but like at the same time, I'm getting stronger to it. And my middle name is Sunshine, yet I feel like I'm allergic to the sun. The one thing I'm allergic to is the sun. It makes me sneeze. I go like this, and I can make the right angle of the sun. I can rub my nose and boom, sneeze every time, man. Maybe it's a sign, you know. The sun is something about the sun and me, you know. But everybody in the sun, we all need the sun. We're all powered by the sun.
Absolutely. But I mean, high up on those trees. Be careful up on those trees, brother.
You got to get a good mount, and if you can't fall out because the belts around you and the street pipes are there. I can imagine if you fell out, you would fall hard. You might like rack your nuts and like end up down. But at the same time, you can keep, as long as you keep your legs pushed forward with the spikes in them, you're making a triangle with the belt, you know. And the harder the thing.
Well, you got the tree climbing equipment. That's great.
I didn't know how to do it last year. I really wanted to do it. I'm just picking them off the ground. I really need to learn how to do this. I bought the wrong shoes first. Like, here, I can pull them up there. It's easy to show you. First, I bought these ankle ones, and I'm like, yeah, I thought these were the ones to do it because they were the cheapest ones, but the spike doesn't really, like, work. It's some weird thing, you know, and I got the better ones in the car. They're too short. Like, they don't go to the shin, you know, so... Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool that you bought those. I was thinking about doing that here. That's really cool.
And the other thing I got is a tree-picking pole. Like, it's like this thing. This thing has helped me get all my citrus, you know. It's called the twister picker, you know.
Huh.
And so you just hold on a tree and twist it off. It's better than the basket, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
Those are my two tools. Like, but it's all about these tools, right? I can only imagine pre-humans or any humans before all this technology going into the tree, getting all scraped up, and
oh man, you see those dudes in the tropics climbing those coconut trees? It's crazy, man.
Yeah, with nothing, just by hands, like.
But listen, my brother, you take care. Let's be in touch, and we'll revisit some stuff.
For sure, man. Yeah, think of some ideas, and we'll get back to stuff. So, okay, peace.
Take it easy, Jonas.
You too, man. Until next.